It is April Fool's Day, of course, the day for pranksters. Did you get the salt in your coffee instead of sugar this morning? Did you bite into your Oreo at lunch and discover it was toothpaste in the middle instead of that Crisco filling? Someone stick a Post-it note on your back? Oh, those are the classics. Well, speaking of classical, here's one from 1935 when someone, a student prankster presumably, released about a dozen bats into an Idaho Falls high school. Some brave boys were able to capture them, the story tells us, and they learned they were taken from the walls of a nearby cave, which is west of Idaho Falls by about 16 miles. Classes were disrupted. Female teachers and students were worried about those bats getting tangled in their hair, so it was chaos for a bit. Good times, right? Well, anyway, while most April Fool's jokes are pretty benign or disruptive at best, there was one prank pulled 2 decades ago by a local radio station that almost caused complete public panic. Okay, well, not quite that far, but for a few, it was all too real. And for those in charge, those in charge of, well, everything around the area, the hoax wasn't a bit funny. The year was 2004. Life was simpler. Flip phones were the sharpest in cellular tech, and Dan Brown had everyone trying to decipher the Da Vinci Code. In Boise, morning radio was being led by Bill and Doug of 100.3 The X.
Yeah, very popular. I'll happily talk about them anytime.
Talk is all we can do about them these days because you can't seem to find any photos of the two online. But I digress.
They were ahead of their time. It was sketch comedy on radio.
Big J was a small part of that show.
I believe at the time I was working middays, so from 10 until 3. So I would come on right after the morning show and was still sort of their stunt guys, so I would do stuff here and there with them.
On that Thursday morning, the 1st of April 2004, Jay says Bill and Doug decided to make a joke of April Fool's Day and play a prank over the air that Lucky Peak Reservoir had ruptured. But as Big J puts it 20 years later, the caper wasn't even that convincing.
You know, the description of like, oh, the Boise Dam has broken, and there were sound effects and there were fish flopping around inside the studio. So that's the level of ridiculousness that was going on. Like, there wasn't them purposely trying to say, hey, the Boise Dam's broke, run for your life. And they took that, I think, and thought everybody would understand that it was ridiculous, but apparently that wasn't the case.
In fact, their bit would cause a bit of a problem.
Yes.
Phone calls kept coming?
Yeah. And we're like, there's the Boise Dam's fine, everybody's okay.
Listeners even called the sheriff's office to ask if it was true. It wasn't, which is why the Army Corps of Engineers called it a sick joke.
These days and times, there's enough concern in general around it. We certainly don't want to add to that. Increasing
concern was not even a concern for Bill and Doug.
But that wasn't even the intent, which is what's crazy about the story.
What was the intent?
And just to have fun. You know, you don't want to get in trouble by any means, but at the same time, when everybody's talking about what you just did, I mean, that's kind of what you do in radio morning. So it was kind of a victory in that regard, and especially when you consider how ridiculous the idea of it was.
Well, Jay told us he doesn't remember anybody getting in trouble because of the bit, Bill or Doug, and he also doesn't remember anything like it happening since. He says, given how much misinformation and misrepresentation there is online and on social media these days, they just want to be a place of refuge from that. Lucky Peak Reservoir, by the way, was the prop of another April Fool's prank just 4 years ago when after the 6.5 earthquake hit northeast of Boise the day before, there were some rumors going around about how the dam was damaged. It wasn't, and of course, it still stands strong today.